our company flew through the air, sails through the sea, and runs over land. And the one that we came up with in the end was the cat. And the cat seems extremely good. It researched very well, and most of our customers thought that the cat portrayed all of the brand values and dynamics that we wanted to communicate. A lot of people pointed out that cats can't actually swim. Well, some can, but very, very few. Cats aren't very keen on water. But funnily enough, this didn't seem to be a problem in the mind of the consumer. So the psychology of it is quite interesting. Earlier on, we had a whiz-bang idea, and we found the perfect animal. One that flew through the air, ran over land, and could swim. And it was a frog. And we tested this, and I thought it was probably not going to work. And indeed, the focus groups came back and said they thought they could understand Kermit the Frog and a cartoon frog, but a frog is a strong, powerful deliverer of a service. They didn't get it. So the frog idea was thrown out. Interestingly enough, it also bombed extremely badly in the French focus groups. The nickname for the French, in English of course, being frogs, and they also tend to like eating frogs. So I don't know if that's the reason they didn't like it, but they didn't like it. So we ended up using the cat symbol. Shortly after I graduated from selling ice cream at Chelsea Football Club, while I was still at school, I got a job as an export clerk in the summer holidays. There's a bit of pre-university experience. My job was as a shipping clerk, booking cargo onto this particular vessel, the Flinders Bay. It's, by today's standards, a tiny little container ship. The container ships of the future may be colossal, which means that you need colossal ports. And if you've got one container ship with a captain and a crew, you probably don't need captain and crew in the other ships. You can have them in a convoy. And basically just, the whole thing's automated. It's a bit like driverless vehicles that Google are experimenting with. So if you've got all the ships cutting through the water in convoy, you can lessen resistance and they can travel using less fuel and faster. But in actual fact, in a few years' time, there won't be any container ships. And there won't be any containers. Because you won't need to make things in China or Southeast Asia and export them to the United States or Europe. You'll be able to make them in United States or Europe. So what technology is there that would enable you to make things in the USA or in Europe cheaper than you can make it in China at the moment? Anybody get any ideas? Who said that? Well done. Very good. A 3D printer. Have you seen a 3D printer? Yeah? Now, a 3D printer enables you to make all sorts of things. Little things, like pens or business card holders or little widgets. But they can also be used for making wings for aircraft. They can be used for making cars. They can be used for building houses. So the technology is moving on quite quickly. I'm pretty certain that all of you will have a 3D printer in your house in the next 5 years. And it will be able to make little things, not very big things. It will be of the same size as your printer that you've probably got at home at the moment. But you'll be able to make small things. Now, the minute that happens, you don't need container ships. You don't need containers. You don't need manufacturing plants. You can actually make what it is that you want on site. A long, long time after the Flinders Bay, I ended up with Excel and latterly DHL. And we were heavily, as DHL, we were heavily involved in delivering all sorts of things. We delivered aircraft engines for Rolls-Royce. We delivered passports and legal documents. We delivered motor cars by air, which sounds a bit strange. I went to the Ford Motor Company manufacturing site in Spain, and they said, we have a small problem. We want you to send some of our cars out to Brazil and Mexico. And we said, yeah, that's fine, that's okay. How many cars do you want to send? 2, 3? And I said, no, about 30. I thought, 30? That's an awful lot of cars to be shipping by air. Oh, I said, okay, no problem. We can do that for you, we can arrange it. Yeah. So, when do you want us to collect the cars? And they said it isn't a one-off. They said it's every month. And we thought, 30 cars every month? Why would you want to send 30 cars by air every month? And they said, well, we've got a problem. The garages and distributors in South America can't get enough of this particular car that we're making. We haven't got time to send it by sea. It just takes too long. So, and the minute we've sent 30 this month, we're going to have to send 30 again and 30 again and 30 again. And it's the same problem that I described earlier on about the retailer, that the garage cannot afford to be out of stock of one of its main lines of motor car. So the manufacturer had to supply to the distributors the cars that they needed. And this continued on for about 18 months. So every month we were sending about 30 completed motor cars. There's quite an interesting story behind that. It's actually not a DHL commercial. It was made by an advertising agency in Korea, and they produced it as part of a pitch to us to win the account. Unfortunately, I knew nothing about this, but what I did know was that I got a phone call from the managing director who had seen this, and he said, "What's going on?" And I gave the wrong answer, and the wrong answer was, "I don't know." At which point he went berserk, and I had to find out. And it took me about 2 hours to work out that actually it was nothing to do with us. It was actually just a Korean advertising agency with a prospective pitch. Right, now this is a simplified diagram of how the operations and supply chain process works. the key thing in it is there are lots of different people. There's the manufacturer, so say you're the manufacturer, that's your company. Then you've got the retailer, and you've got your suppliers. But your suppliers have also got suppliers, and their suppliers have suppliers. So you've got the supplier, 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 supplier. And very often you're selling to your customer, who sells to their 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 customer, who sells to a consumer. So some of these chains can be mind-blowingly long, and you really have no idea who's finally using your product for what, and who's actually manufacturing the little grommet that you stick on the left-hand side of the box that you're selling. So the little grommet in itself may not be very important, but if it's necessary to make your box work, and there's a problem with grommet supply, then you have a problem. If people start using your product inappropriately, or it hurts them, or injures them, then you have a problem. Now, there's a lot of car manufacturers at the moment having problems with airbags. Have you all read about that? Now, if an airbag goes off and shatters your eardrums, or doesn't work properly and you break your ribs on the steering wheel, these are all reasons why you might sue the manufacturer of that motor car. And I've worked in the United States, I know the way it works. If you get the opportunity to sue anybody for anything, you do. And you get people ringing you up all the time saying, have you been in an accident? Have you had a problem? Is there anything that we can help you with? So basically litigation specialists who specialise in extracting money from organisations. So you've got to be very aware of the kind of things that could go wrong with something simple like a car mat. There's a friend of mine that sells car mats in Malaysia, and there's nothing technical about this car mat. It's rubber, it's black, and it's pretty boring. That's it. But if that rubber car mat rides up underneath the brake pedal and you're hurtling towards a brick wall and your foot gets tangled up and you don't brake, you hit the brick wall and you get injured, then he could be held responsible, product liability. So it's desperately important to understand all of the little bits and pieces that are getting fitted into your vehicle. Interestingly enough, I was also advising him on, well, I wouldn't say I was advising him, because I got it wrong, but we were talking about the logo that he wanted to use. And the branding he used for his car mat was a horse. I'm thinking, a horse? What has a horse got to do with a car mat? And he said, well, he wanted something that got across the idea of power, and we do talk about horsepower, engine size is measured in horsepower, and his main market was Malaysian Chinese. And at the time, I knew nothing about Malaysia. I said, look, fantastic, that's great. I still don't see why a horse. And he said, well, a horse, you know, is evidence of good luck. And if you see them in somebody's room, the horse is bringing you good luck, same as the fish, yeah? So he chose the horse logo and his car mat sold extremely well. Right, so back to this diagram. There's all sorts of flows going on. There's the flow from your supplier to your supplier. There's the flow from your supplier to you. And there's a flow from you to your retailer or wholesaler. And there's a flow from the wholesaler or retailer to the customer. And at all those different stages, there will be faulty items. There are items they want to return. So you need to have the reverse logistics process to get these goods back. So the actual flow is extremely complicated. Now this just talks a bit about some of the jargon and how it's connected to the theory of operations management. Operations management is very closely aligned to supply chain management because you're using the materials in your manufacturing process. If you take something very, very simple in terms of a manufacturing process, like making a cup of tea, there are 30 different ways of making a cup of tea. If you think about a cup of tea, what ingredients do you need? What do you need? Hot water. Tea leaves or tea bag? Whichever, that's the wrong answer. You use tea leaves because tea bags contain the dust off the factory floor that they've swept up after they've put the tea leaves in proper tea cozies or whatever. So tea bags are usually inferior. So if you want to make a good cup of tea, you don't use tea bags. Right, so is it hot water or is it boiling? Boiling, okay. So it's not hot water, it's boiling water. What are you going to put in the tea? Sugar. Or maybe lemon. If it's Earl Grey, it might be lemon. What else are you going to put in the tea? Milk. What temperature is the milk? Is it hot milk, warm milk or cold milk? Wrong answer. Cold milk. Right. So you've now got the boiling water, the tea leaves. What are you going to put the tea leaves in? What are you going to put the tea leaves in? So shaped like this, and it's got a spout. A teapot, right, okay. What do you have to do to the teapot before you put the tea leaves in? What do you do to the teapot before you put the tea leaves in? You wash it, yes. That's a good idea. That's usually where I got it wrong, I think. Okay. Well, after you've washed it, what do you do? Hot water. You put the hot water in, swirl it round. Now the teapot is warm, and you throw that